Here is the strange thing no one tells you about awakening. Once you begin to see through the illusion, the very environments that once felt normal, crowds, gatherings, social spaces, begin to feel like foreign terrain. Not because you have become shy or anxious, but because you have stopped participating in the unconscious performance everyone else is still acting out. It's like being the only sober person at a party where everyone else is drunk on their own identities, dramas, and psychological masks. You're not better than them, but you are seeing what they cannot yet see. And the first thing you notice when you step into a crowd is not the physical noise, but the psychic noise. The hum of 1,000 fractured egos trying to hold themselves together. You feel the insecurity masquerading as confidence, the loneliness dressed up as excitement, the quiet desperation beneath small talk. You can sense the subtle battles for attention, the hunger for validation, the unconscious reaching and grasping that most people don't even realize they're doing. It's like walking into a room full of radios, all tuned to different frequencies, all blasting at the same time, and suddenly you can hear every channel at once. Before awakening, you were too caught up in your own noise to notice the noise of others. But the moment your inner chatter quiets, the moment you stop believing the story in your head, you become aware of everyone else's story, and it's overwhelming. Not because you judge them, but because you finally feel the raw truth of human suffering without the filters society provides. You see people inflating themselves to hide their emptiness. You see masks layered on masks. You see the silent plea beneath every boast. Please tell me I matter. And here's the paradox. The more awakened you become, the more energetically visible you become. People sense you without knowing why. They feel the calm in you, the presence in you, the groundedness in you. And because they don't know how to generate that from within themselves, they unconsciously try to take it from you. They gravitate toward you, not out of malice, but out of hunger. They want your steadiness. They want your energy. They want your attention, because your attention feels like oxygen in a world where everyone is suffocating. This is why awakened people get tired in crowds so quickly. They aren't drained because they are weak. They are drained because crowds are full of people unconsciously reaching for the nearest source of stability. And that source ends up being you. You become the well in the desert. And everyone who is thirsty drinks from you without realizing they are doing it. This is why awakened people often withdraw, not to avoid society, not to become hermits, but because maintaining awareness in an ocean of unconsciousness requires constant internal vigilance. You're watching the crowd, feeling its energy, sensing the unspoken dynamics, perceiving the masks, navigating vibrations most people can't even detect. It's not too much because you're fragile. It's too much because you're awake. And the cost of awareness, at first, is sensitivity. When an awakened person stands inside a crowd, something even stranger happens. They begin to notice the architecture of the collective mind. Most people dissolve into the group's emotional field without realizing it. The mood of the crowd becomes their mood. The speed of the environment becomes their speed. The unspoken rules become their rules. They merge without awareness, the way a drop of water merges into a wave. But an awakened person doesn't merge. Their awareness stays intact, like a clear flame in a windy room. They can feel the group mind forming the subtle pressure to agree, to perform, to fit into the emotional frequency of the space, and they simply don't fall into it. This refusal to dissolve into the collective illusion creates an invisible barrier between them and everyone else, a kind of energetic boundary that others can feel but cannot name. And that boundary makes people uncomfortable, because when someone is no longer swept up by the group's unconscious patterns, they become a mirror, a quiet, unshakable mirror that reflects back everything people don't want to see: their tension, their insecurity, their facade. People don't consciously understand why they feel uneasy in the presence of someone awakened. They just sense that this person is not participating in the same psychological game. And when someone stops playing the game, it exposes the game itself. This is why awakened people often find others behaving strangely around them, in crowds, talking too loudly, trying too hard, becoming defensive, or avoiding eye contact. They sense that your presence is different, and anything different threatens the fragile stability of their social mask. The awakened feel this immediately. They can see the cracks in the performance. They see the mindlessness behind habitual gestures. They see the panic behind forced laughter. They see the loneliness hidden beneath noisy conversations. And they see it all while remaining completely still inside themselves. This stillness is not passive, it is perceptive. It watches everything, it absorbs nothing. It enters the crowd without becoming the crowd. And this level of awareness comes with a cost: exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but existential fatigue. Because every second you are in a crowd, you are processing layers of unconscious energy that others don't even know exist. You're noticing the emotional residue people carry like invisible backpacks. You're feeling the suppressed anger, the unspoken anxiety, the need for significance radiating from every direction. It's not that awakened people choose to perceive these things. They simply can't not perceive them anymore. Awakening is irreversible. Once you see the code, you can't unsee it. Once you hear the noise beneath people's words, you can't pretend the noise isn't there. And once you sense the unconscious patterns shaping human behavior, crowds stop being groups of people having fun. They become living maps of the human condition, unfiltered, unedited. This clarity is beautiful, but it is also heavy. It is like seeing the machinery inside a clock, while everyone else still thinks the numbers on the outside are reality. You wish you could forget. You wish you could just join in again. But consciousness has no reverse gear. And so you stand in the middle of a crowd, present but separate, aware but invisible, compassionate but deeply, quietly tired. This is the paradox. The more connected you feel to existence itself, the less connected you feel inside a crowd. Not because you've lost connection, but because now you can see that most of what passes for connection in crowds is just noise wearing a mask. There is another layer to this experience that most people never recognize. Crowds operate like emotional amplifiers. Whatever unconscious state dominates the space, anxiety, excitement, insecurity, competition, gets magnified and circulated. People absorb and recycle each other's emotional frequencies without ever noticing. But an awakened person does notice, because they're no longer entangled in their own inner noise. Their mind has become quieter, clearer, more transparent. And in that clarity, the emotional turbulence of a crowd hits with full force. It feels like walking into a storm with no windbreaker. Every unresolved fear in the room brushes against your awareness. Every hidden agenda hums like static. Every suppressed emotion vibrates just beneath people's words. And because most people don't regulate themselves consciously, they unconsciously project their internal states outward, searching for emotional stability by pulling energy from whoever looks the most grounded. The awakened person becomes the default target, not because others intend to drain them, but because their inner stillness feels like a refuge that everyone wants to occupy for a moment. It's like being the only warm fire in a cold room. Everyone instinctively wants to get close, absorb, take. They want your calm, your centeredness, your presence, because they have lost their own. This dynamic is subtle but relentless. A casual conversation suddenly feels like a psychic extraction. A friendly interaction starts to feel like someone leaning their entire emotional weight on you. You become the grounding wire for everyone else's ungrounded energy. And the irony, people often interpret your stillness as availability. They assume you're open, receptive, easy to talk to. They have no idea that the very reason you look calm is because you're reholding your awareness together against the full force of the crowd's unconscious pull. This is why many awakened individuals develop a need to step outside during gatherings, to find a corner, to retreat to silence for a few minutes, just to It's not avoidance, it's energetic self-preservation. The crowd is playing tug-of-war with your presence without even knowing it, and you can feel every single pull. There's also the matter of authenticity, perhaps the most painful dimension of all. In crowds, authenticity becomes rare, almost non-existent. People slip into characters the moment they enter a social space. Their speech changes, their posture adjusts, their laugh becomes slightly exaggerated. Their opinions subtly align with whoever is standing nearest. It is a dance of masks, a collective theater where everyone knows their role but has forgotten they are acting. The awakened person sees the performance instantly, and once you see it, you cannot participate in it without feeling like you're betraying yourself. You can talk, yes. You can smile, yes. You can engage, yes. But you cannot play the game with the same unconscious enthusiasm as before. The script feels empty. The characters feel hollow. The lines feel rehearsed. You begin to crave real conversation, real presence, real connections, something that vibrates below the surface. But in a crowd, everything is surface. And that dissonance creates a deep inner ache, the longing for authenticity in a space built on collective pretense. This ache doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from truth. You are not too good for the crowd. you are simply unable to pretend anymore. Awakening removes your ability to lie to yourself, and that includes lying through social performance. So you stand there with a soft, internal tension, a quiet, aching mismatch between what you now are and what the crowd expects you to be. And the only moment you feel fully yourself again is when you step outside. Inhale the fresh air and remember, oh, this is what real presence feels like. Another dimension begins to reveal itself as awakening stabilizes the collective mind. Most people have no idea such a thing even exists, but the awakened person feels it immediately, almost like stepping into an ocean of thoughts, emotions, and unconscious patterns that don't belong to you yet move through you as the crowd thickens. In a crowd, people stop functioning as individuals. A group identity forms, a kind of shared psychological atmosphere that dictates the mood, the behavior, even the thinking patterns of everyone inside it. This is why crowds can turn into mobs, why people laugh louder than they naturally would, why conversations bend toward triviality, why authenticity collapses under the weight of collective expectation. The awakened person does not merge with this collective mind. They stand beside it, watching it swirl like a fog moving across a valley. And because they don't merge with it, they feel the separation sharply. They feel like the only person not hypnotized. This creates a strange sensation, being physically surrounded, yet existentially alone. You're in the room, but not in the dream. Everyone else seems to be plugged into the same mental current, responding to the same invisible signals, following the same unconscious rhythm. Meanwhile, you're observing the entire process like a lucid dreamer watching sleepwalkers. It's not superiority, it's clarity. And clarity, when few share it, feels like solitude. Then comes the expectation problem. Crowds operate on an unspoken agreement that you will play your part, that you will nod at the right moments, laugh at the expected cues, show the appropriate excitement, irritation, agreement, or politeness. The awakened person can imitate these behaviors, but imitation becomes exhausting. Pretending to care about meaningless conversations feels like emotional sandpaper. Engaging in small talk feels like shrinking yourself to fit someone else's version of reality. And every moment of pretense drains energy because it requires contraction. Awakening expands you. The social script compresses you. The two forces collide every time you speak. And then there's the loneliness, the kind only awakened people understand. It's not the loneliness of lacking company. It's the loneliness of lacking resonance. You can stand in a room filled with people and still feel like you're re-speaking a language no one else can hear. It's the loneliness that arises when your depth has no mirror, when your clarity has no witness, when your presence floats unrecognized in an ocean of performance. This isn't sadness. It's simply the natural result of seeing reality directly, while others are consumed by their internal worlds. But and here is the paradox. The awakened person also sees unity more clearly than the crowd ever could. They feel the oneness beneath the masks, the shared consciousness beneath the egos, the silent being beneath the noise. And this creates its own strange tension. You feel deeply connected to everyone on the level of essence, yet profoundly disconnected from them on the level of personality. Connected as being, isolated as a self. This is one of awakening's greatest contradictions. You see unity yet feel separation. You feel compassion yet experience exhaustion. You understand everyone yet can speak to almost no one. This contradictory space, connected to all, aligned with none, can be disorienting until you accept it as a natural stage on the path. You're not meant to merge with the unconscious crowd. You're meant to remain aware within it, to observe without absorbing, to stand present without drowning in the collective noise. You are learning a new way of being in the world, connected but not consumed, compassionate but not depleted, present but not entangled. This is the beginning of a deeper transformation, one that shifts your relationship with crowds from avoidance to mastery, from overwhelm to effortless presence, from exhaustion to genuine clarity about how to protect your energy without closing your heart. And then, with time, something subtle but profound begins to change. The very sensitivity that once overwhelmed you in crowds becomes the foundation of a new kind of presence. What used to feel like an attack now feels like information. What used to drain you now teaches you. What used to isolate you now reveals the architecture of human consciousness with astonishing clarity. You stop taking the noise personally. You stop resisting the energetic pull. You stop feeling threatened by the masks people wear. You see everything, every ego performance, every insecurity disguised as confidence, every grasp for attention, every unconscious projection not as chaos, but as echoes of the same universal consciousness trying to remember itself. And this shift transforms your entire relationship with crowds. Where once you felt invaded, now you feel spacious. The noise is still there, but it moves through you instead of into you. The egos still perform, but you no longer feel obligated to respond. The unconsciousness still swirls like a storm, but you remain centered, grounded in a deeper stillness that nothing external can touch. This is what I meant earlier by compassionate detachment. It's not coldness, it's not indifference. It says the ability to stay rooted in your own being while allowing others to remain wherever they are on their path. You no longer try to fix them. You no longer judge them. You no longer feel responsible for their suffering or threatened by their projections. You simply see, clearly, quietly, without entanglement. And in that seeing, something beautiful happens. Connection reappears, not the superficial connection of matching personalities, but the deeper connection of shared being. People sense this. They feel your calm not as something they need to pull from you, but as something they can rest in without taking. Your presence stops attracting energy leeches and begins attracting those who are also beginning to awaken. Those who crave truth more than performance, stillness more than attention, authenticity more than approval. You no longer feel alone in crowds, not because the crowd has changed, but because your relationship to it has. You are no longer fighting the noise, you are listening beneath it. You are no longer drained by others. You are discerning where your boundaries truly are. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. And eventually, you understand something essential. Awakening was never supposed to remove you from the world. It was supposed to change the way you stand within it. You learn to carry your silence into the noise, your clarity into the chaos, your presence into the performance. You become the one who is in the crowd, but not of the crowd, surrounded but not swallowed, engaged but never lost. This is the moment you stop seeing crowds as a threat and start seeing them as a field in which your consciousness is tested, strengthened, refined. You stop avoiding life and start moving through it with a kind of effortless precision. You see the play for what it isn't. In seeing it clearly, you are finally free to participate without losing yourself.